Top Gear, brought to you tonight all the way from America.
And to kick off the new series, we've come to Southern California to ask the big question.
Just because the Yanks buy more motors than any other nation on the planet, does that mean their cars are any good? Americans have a peculiar fascination with cars.
And we have some very peculiar facts to prove it.
In the United States, Americans burn 147 billion gallons of gasoline every year.
Americans drive 2.5 trillion miles every year.
In some states, you can legally drive when you're 15.
In California, some highways have 12 lanes.
That's 12 lanes in both directions.
That's right.
On tonight's All-American Top Gear, Tiff Needle rips it up in the new Shelby Cobra.
I'll be telling Kate Humble how I hunt and skin cars.
And Quentin Wilson rips it up in the home of American hot rod.
And we're also at La La Land's very own motor show to see just how over the top American cars have got.
These are the current fad wagons stateside, ever larger and more lumbering sport utility vehicles like this Dodge Durango. If you thought the Europeans were obsessed by their 4x4s, then you ain't seen nothing yet. Since 1998, sales of these pumped-up trucks have outstripped those of normal cars in the US, and the trend looks set to continue.
You see, the thing is, Americans love this buccaneering spirit. They think that all they've got to do is jump into their 4x4s and they'll conquer the West all over again. Shame that, because the reality is there is less likelihood of them driving off-road than there is of them moving to Cuba.
At least somebody at Chevrolet has a sense of humour. This is the largest in their off-roader range, and mindful where most of them will spend a lot of their time, they've called it the Suburban.
But the Suburban's looking a bit inconsequential and small because Ford have come up with this, the Lincoln Navigator. A 4x4 so vast you could get a Land Rover Discovery in the boot. And everything about this thing is big. 305 section tyres, a 5.4-litre supercharged V8, 3 widescreen televisions, a DVD player and a Sony PlayStation. The thing about these things, they are so terrifyingly large that if they hit anything smaller, like New York, they'd go just straight over the top.
And speaking of over the top, this is Ford's frightening Lightning, a pickup truck tuned by the 4 horsemen of the apocalypse. Which only goes to prove America's continuing obsession with preposterous pickups. Over to you, Tiff.
A 1, 2, 3.
In America, 4 out of the top 10 bestsellers are pickup trucks. Solid, reliable, and the size of houses. They're as popular as pancakes and maple syrup.
Me, I just can't see the attraction. I mean, look at this. It's like a glorified transit van without a roof on it. And certainly not the most comfortable form of transport, especially if the best 2 seats are taken. Thanks. I don't know, I guess it must be some innate cowboy sort of thing. I mean, horses are useful, but they're darn uncomfortable as well. No, pickups just aren't for me. They're too cumbersome, too uncomfortable, and let's face it, too slow. Welcome to the Ford SVT F-150 Lightning. 5.4 litres, supercharged, and it wants to tell the world.
The Lightning is the product of Ford's Special Vehicle Team, a small band of enthusiasts who lock themselves deep away intent on creating limited edition high-performance vehicles. And this, at $30,000, is their latest.
Inside, it's not like a commercial vehicle at all. The SVT has these special suede and velour seats with electric adjustment. There's electric door mirrors, power steering, ABS, air conditioning, cruise control, all as standard. Brickies have never had it so good.
And in this, they can launch themselves to 60 in just 6.2 seconds, thanks to 360 horsepower and a tidal wave of torque.
Just dab the accelerator and you start a small war under the bonnet. Not only can you hear that V8 burbling away, you can feel it through the floor. And once that supercharger starts building up its pressure, it fans the flames in the cylinders like a huge set of bellows, turning it into something almost volcanic. From the outside, it's got more presence than Elvis and Sinatra put together, with its 18-inch rims, low-profile tyres, deep front spoiler. It's rather like the Hoover Dam on wheels. There is one drawback there with all this power and torque, because the Lightning has more weight on the front wheels than the rear, and it's rear-wheel drive without traction control. So when it comes to the bendy bits, it's a permanent wrestling match to keep it on the straight and narrow. Fortunately, there aren't many bends in Nevada.
But whenever you fancy a bit of fun, there are hundreds of square miles of desert.
Now, I reckon the modern-day cowboy has a lot more fun with his 360 horses than he ever did with just one. It doesn't feel like a big machine at all, the steering's responsive, and the brakes are even quite effective. Ooh, ooh, ooh.
Of course, this isn't quite the sort of treatment the Lightning is intended for. Let's face it, it's a cruising machine for when the cowboy wants to head into town and impress the gals. And where better than Vegas? If the Lightning is a pickup truck trying to be a sports car, it doesn't really stack up. But as a toy for posing, it's second to none. Mind you, when you want to stop cruising and start gambling, where can you leave such a huge machine?
But then, when you're in Las Vegas, who worries about parking?
There was a time when General Motors sold half the new cars made in America, but not anymore. They are in deep trouble. And if you want to know why, I give you the Monte Carlo SS. Chevy will be there, not for a while yet. The man who designed this should hang his head in shame. How about that for a back end? It is the dirt of the dog. Look at these wheel arches, look at the bulges, the way the belt line rises and falls. And then when you get round to the front, it's the same sad design disaster.
And there's not much hope when you look at their concept cars. Oldsmobile is meant to be GM's sporty, sophisticated brand, so they're presenting us with this rather round-shouldered hatchback. But it does have, wait for it, a sliding door.
While Saturn, another GM brand, has fielded this thoughtful and friendly mini MPV.
Now, I thought concept cars were meant to be all futuristic, but to European eyes, raised on tightly sculpted Puntos and Passats, the Oldsmobile isn't that fantastic. And technically, it's not so hot either. Americans may be excited at the prospect of voice-activated controls, but Jaguar can sell you this technology on an S-Type right now.
Saturn's mini MPV concept may seem quite funky with its double sliding doors and its rear-facing child seats, just like a London taxi. But to be frank, the world already has a funky people carrier. It's already in production, and it's called the Fiat Multipla. Sorry.
It's not all bad news though. This Ford Thunderbird concept looks great and you'll be able to buy it next year. But rather than heralding a brave new look, Ford have drawn on former glories to give it that feel-good factor. For well-heeled Californians, however, there's only one way to get your retro kicks, and that's with a good old American hot rod.
In Britain, there's no such thing as a hot rod. We have customised Vauxhall Novas with tricked-out leather interiors, tyres wide enough to roll a cricket pitch, and tacky plastic body kits. Here in California, however, they do things differently.
Hot rods are peculiar to California, like a lot of things are peculiar to California because of a lot of the peculiar people that live here. My people are crazy. I mean, my dad and my uncles all raced hot rods out on the dry lakes in the 30s, long before there was any kind of an organization or anything. And they'd go out and run 5 or 6 abreast. That's where they did it. They got run out of town, so they went out to the desert and did all of that.
It was the post-war years that saw the hot rod gospel spread from sunny Southern California to the rest of the US. For GIs fresh out of the army, old pre-war cars looked dull and dated.
Look, Mom, no rear window.
Armed with welding torches and spray guns, they took matters into their own hands, chopping and lowering old bits of metal and turning them into something much flashier and much, much faster.
The time, 210 miles an hour.
But these days, hot rods aren't knocked up in people's garden sheds. This is a billion-dollar industry, and if you want one of these things, batting starts at $150,000. So your average hot rodder then is more likely to be a fat-bottomed businessman with a black American Express card than an acne-racked teenager. Take this. It's a 1940 Ford Coupe, and underneath that rather strident bonnet is a Chrysler 426 Hemi, which produces, are you sitting down, 450 horsepower. How much? $250,000 takes it all away. This loony coupe was built by LA's SoCal Speed Shop, one of the oldest and most celebrated of American hot rod makers. Now, the reason why this cost such a whole hill of money is that it took 2 years to build. The engine is lightened and blueprinted, the suspension's all specially tweaked, it's got a crash gearbox, no power steering but air conditioning, and all this has been hand done. This is a dashboard out of a 55 T-Bird, again, all hand metal to fit. And this is no showpiece just to look at. If I do that, it's very, very quick. It'll do the standing quarter mile in 9 seconds, which, believe you me, is quick. 60 comes up in 6 seconds, and it maxes out at 140 miles an hour. And it is surprisingly tractable and docile to drive. In fact, the guy who owns this car drives it every single day. He commutes on the freeways in it. It could only happen in America. And this car is as arresting as a punch in the face. Hot rodding is bigger now than it's been at any time since its 50s heyday. And when the average US car is so anodyne, so soulless, it's no wonder that nostalgic Americans are blowing their kids' inheritance on cars that echo the era when street-level car culture was at its most exciting. Low rider, drives a little slower. And what better compliment could today's auto industry pay than this, the Plymouth Prowler, Chrysler's mass-market offering for the modern motorist. It's the first hot rod ever built by one of America's big 3 car makers, and it's gone down an absolute storm. And naturally, with all this comes a whole industry of accessories, like this. For just $250, you can have your own customized crash helmet. Perfect for blending into the Californian ambience. Then again, perhaps not.
On the 10th of February, we will be presenting the first ever Top Gear Awards. For weeks now, everyone in the Top Gear office have been arguing over which were the best cars of 1999, and it's all got rather heated. So we need your help. One of the categories in our Top Gear award show will be the best Top Gear item ever. We've selected 6 of the best from the last 21 years, and all you have to do is pick up the phone and vote for your favourite. Choice number 1 is the time when Tiff and Vicky had a little race.
Easy peasy pudding and...
If you'd like to see Tiff staring at Vicky's massive afterburners again, call 0900 144 7701. Secondly, the chance to see Andy Willman at an American car show, naked. If you like your men hirsute and your ostriches proud, call 0900 144 7702.
Don't even think about it.
Maybe Tony Mason's short, sharp shock in a Reliant Robin does it for you. If a rolling tone gathers your vote, call 09001 447703.
Well, here they are. Choice of hatchback or saloon. State coming in a couple of years.
If you'd like to see Jeremy admiring the Vauxhall Vectra, call 09001 447704.
Yeah. Yes. No, it is. It's a good idea. I'll go for a drive. We'll play some music. We always do that.
5th on the list is That Drive. Tiff takes Jeremy and Quentin for a little spin.
A number of directions there, Tiff. All in one go.
Well, a few little spins. If you like your presenters shaken and stirred, call 09001 447705. And finally, Quentin's epic guide to cops and robbers' cars down the years. To watch the filth catch the scum again, call 09001 447706. And if you missed your fave, don't worry, we'll show them all again next week. The winning item will be shown on our awards programme in 3 weeks' time. So give us a call and vote for the best Top Gear item ever.
It all began early this year at Sebring, Florida, when the comparatively unknown Cobra, built by Carroll Shelby, made its appearance in the world-famous as an underdog against the powerful Ferrari. Got the checkered flag.
The Shelby Cobra went on to win countless races the world over and became the classic muscle sports car of the 60s. Now, 30 years after production of the Cobra ceased, there's a new kid on the block with exactly the same ethos, and it too carries the Shelby name. This is the Series 1, the first all-Shelby car from the ground up. But why now?
I was in my 70s, and I guess you kind of hate to give up before building your own car, and so we came out with a Series 1, and it's a good car, and but there's so much work with the government regulations, with safety, with emissions now, it's impossible for a little guy to make any money.
Even a price tag of over $100,000 isn't going to recoup Shelby's investment. But his main aim was to build a car that would be enjoyed. And it didn't take me long to discover he'd succeeded.
This playful handling is doubtless thanks in no small part to Mr. Shelby's own engineering skills and experience racing all over the world. It's certainly the best handling American muscle car I've ever driven. And a lot of that is down to its 50-50 weight split. They put the gearbox over the rear axle and they brought the Aurora V8 engine right up here into the cockpit. So it's got the right weight distribution to allow the driver to turn in when he wants the front to turn, lift off, turn, power with the back just twinking out. Wonderful.
That Aurora power plant is the latest high-tech 4-litre from General Motors, pushing out a mighty 320 bhp. The days of simply cramming in bigger and bigger engines to go faster is becoming a thing of the past. However, a supercharged version is on the drawing board for those who want more. So, what about a Shelby Series 2 sometime in the future?
I'll be 77 years old in another month, and I think to take on another project, I'd have to think long and hard. It's been so difficult with this one.
I drove the Shelby long and hard around the Las Vegas Speedway's handling circuit, enjoying every lap. The brakes stayed strong, the handling consistent, the muscle ever present. The spirit of the Cobra definitely lives on.
This black Shelby is one of 6 prototypes. 500 production models will be made, and they will all be this Centennial Silver. With a price tag of $134,000, we're talking more Ferrari 360 than Porsche 911. And when you hear that there is no boot space at all, it sounds a bit steep. But over here, they'll gladly pay that extra premium for this little badge.
But if it's badges that flick your switch, this is the biggest of them all. America's equivalent of our Rolls-Royce, the Cadillac. The Cadillac used to be great innovators. They were first with the electric starter, first with the V8 engine, and first with those flamboyant fins. But these days, that's all changed. Ask any American. Cadillacs are more likely to be driven by cottonheads, old people. What was once the standard of the world has lost its way. So, in a bid for some youth and sex appeal, Caddy have given their DeVille a makeover. Can't say the restyle works, in fact it looks about as sexy as sooty. But the brilliant 32-valve North Star V8 continues, along with 100,000-mile tune-up intervals and a roadside assistance plan that lasts the life of the car. At $54,000 or £33,000, the DeVille undercuts Merc's E-Class and Lexus's MS400. Trouble is, it's nowhere near as good. I suppose on a freeway, this would be a reasonable drive. It's soft, it's cosseting, it's quiet. But on anything more demanding like this canyon road, it is completely and utterly out of kilter with its environment. It handles like the Lusitania. It is as quick off the mark as the Pope in full ceremonial regalia, and you need a ferry terminal to park it. The simplest bend, the very, very slightest corner, and it is all over the place, lurching and kneeling and complaining. Anything more than a walking pace, and it's hopeless. Listen to this. Good heavens, I mean, come on. And the problem with this Cadillac is the same that affects the entire American auto industry. It's an obsession with convenience options. They follow the dictum of Lee Iacocca, who was chairman of Ford, and he said, don't bother giving the customer technical innovations, give them leather. They can smell it. Leather and gadgets, gadgets and more gadgets. Like a computer that tells you your transmission oil has 99% of its life left. Great. There's a compass in the rear-view mirror, fan controls on the steering wheel, a handy tissue dispenser in the glove box, headlights that automatically switch on at dusk, and my personal favourite, a bucket for sandcastles on Venice Beach. Now you might think quite properly that was quite enough gadgets for one motor car. But no, Cadillac have included the mother of all gadgets in this one, but to show it to you I have to wait until the sun goes down. For $2,000 you can specify an option on your Cadillac called Night Vision. Now Night Vision uses an infrared camera in the middle of the radiator grille which picks up heat sources, human beings, animals, cars. Cadillac claim that it gives you 3 to 5 times more visibility than conventional headlamps, and this is how it works. The head-up display above the steering wheel receives thermal images transmitted from the nose camera. Its field is a touch too narrow and it is rather distracting, but on the plus side you do get to see the strangest things.
My God, he's naked. He's completely in the buff. They're odd people, these Americans. Very, very odd.
Well, quite. Take artist Dustin Schuler, who's something of an oddity because he doesn't actually like cars, unless they're flat. An absence of buffalo roaming his neighborhood in Los Angeles led him to seek a more ubiquitous prey. This is a man who takes cars and skins them alive. Dustin's car art began 20 years ago when he made a 2-ton nail and dropped it 100 feet through a 1959 Cadillac. He called it Death of an Era.
In order to finance the project, I spent all the money I had, which was, I think, maybe $200. And I was able to buy the car. But I had no more money, so what I did was I pre-sold pieces of the car, souvenir pieces of the car. Proceeded to cut the Cadillac into pieces with the oxyacetylene torch and laid them out on the ground in order so I could photograph them and to keep track of the pieces. So I went to the roof and I looked down and it was a big skin car. And I thought, but the pieces had to go out. I couldn't keep it together.
Yeah.
So I decided, though, right then and there, I was going to skin cars.
So you ended up doing things like this Batmobile over here.
Exactly. Yes. Mm-hmm. Yeah, which is a children's car. It was actually drivable.
Okay, so I want to see how you actually do this. You've got this little plastic car over here.
I've got it's a half-scale Volkswagen Beetle.
Mm-hmm. Okay, little car, you're about to die.
This is not a living creature. This is inert.
There's only one way to skin a car. First, remove the guts. Lights, doors, bonnet, boot and dashboard. Dusting's rather partial to Volkswagen Beetles because to be worth skinning, a car has to have character. Otherwise, it's not art.
I do go for things that will look good.
Yeah.
Most of the American cars that I'm familiar with look like steers or something. They're just not pretty.
Is this where the fun bit starts?
I
want to see you chop it.
You'll see.
Even this plastic Beetle took 4 ear-splitting hours to dissect. If it's the real thing, he could be skinning for 3 weeks solid. Once the flanks, front and back ends are separated, the pelt is laid flat, the doors and wing mirrors added for garnish, and the whole skin will be stitched together, like this.
This is a standard pelt. It's got a field dress pelt. And if I was going to do a prime pelt, I'd have everything stripped off. I'd have it re-chromed and all the paint stripped and repainted. And so it'd be very nice then. That'd be a prime pelt. Most of the cars on the road, to me, they all look alike. They don't have the personality. Except, well, the new Volkswagen.
Yeah.
I think that might be very nice, actually. But everything else looks like a Ford Taurus. I'm not impressed.
Our artist friend may like killing cars, but he's ploughing a lonely furrow because Americans can't seem to get enough of them. Last year they bought 17 million, a record. But the crazy thing is that increasingly fewer and fewer of those 17 million cars are born and built in the USA.
Well, there seems to be a real insular culture at Detroit that doesn't really listen to the outside influences, and they really seem to be startled every time they come to California about how the Japanese and the Europeans have really taken over the market, and yet they don't take it back with them, and it's really frustrating to see that. And perhaps it's most indicative when you see the sales of luxury cars, where it used to be purely a Cadillac and Lincoln market. Now the aspirational vehicles aren't even American anymore, and that should really be a telling tale for them.
But we have discovered one sliver of hope on our American Odyssey. Ford have realised that the market's changing. They know that the dot-com generation don't want to drive cars key anymore.
And that's why they're pushing this, the Focus, for all it's worth. They've got a massive TV ad campaign, billboards everywhere, and they expect to sell millions. If it catches on, it could change the American automotive landscape forever. And no prizes for guessing what's just been named North America's Car of the Year for 1999. Good night.
I'm picking up good vibrations. She's giving me the excitation.
Next tonight here on BBC Two, finding African jewels buried in one of the first Anglo-Saxon graveyards. Meet the ancestors in just a moment.
Good vibrations. She's giving me the excitation. Good vibrations. Close my eyes. She's somehow closer now.